I know what you're thinking. Isn't that the stupid guy that did the port talk on St. Martin and tried something with pirate movies? And here he is again with something completely different. Well, actually, genealogy is what got me started in this lecture business. And I started out by just trying to uncover some information about my two grandfathers, whom I never knew. My first grandfather died when I was very young, and then my second one divorced my grandmother and disappeared. Nobody ever heard from him again. So I didn't know anything about those guys. So I thought I'd just start to do a little research into them, and before you know it, I got hooked on genealogy. And because every ancestor you find, you've got two more to look for, their parents, right? So then you keep going, you keep going, you keep going. But the other thing I really wanted to know was, well, what about all the stuff I had heard when I was growing up, the folklore of our family? I had heard some interesting stories about a grandfather, a great-great-great-grandfather, who fought in the Civil War and was supposedly a hero. When I did my research, I discovered that, yeah, he was in the Civil War, but he deserted. Some hero. And then I found out I had an uncle who was in the Wild West and was the head of a cattle drive and went to the Chisholm Trail and all that. Yeah, he was in the Wild West, but he was hanged in Wyoming for stealing a horse. So he was no hero either. We're going to find as you go into this thing that a lot of the stuff that you heard when you were kids or that your parents told you is not accurate. And it's not their fault. They were probably told inaccurate information themselves. For example, I was told I was half Irish and half German, and I'm about 5% Irish and about, 20% German, never due to the DNA test that I had taken. So, some surprises along the way, but they're fun surprises, and you can't do anything about changing history, you just got to roll with it. So then, because I did that early research, I sort of got hooked on the whole idea of genealogy. And I started poking around, and I found that I had links to Julius Caesar and Jesus Christ and all kinds of people. None of it was proven, of course. But I did find out that I had a link to a Mayflower passenger that looked pretty good, pretty promising. So I contacted Mayflower and said, how do I go about getting certified as a Mayflower descendant? And they said, it's a long road, and I'm sure you want to do it, and it's expensive. But I said, yeah, I want to do it. So anyway, long story short, 3 years later, I got approved as a Mayflower descendant. And that's because their requirements for entry into their society is so rigorous. You have to have 2 pieces of written proof for every event in every member's life. So every birth record, every marriage record, every baptism, whatever you could think of, they wanted dual copies of written reports. You know, you go back to 1620, how many written reports were there? I mean, it's really hard. But it worked, and it did it, so it was a lot of fun. So I encourage you, if you're interested at all, to take a look at becoming at least a family genealogist and go through it. Now, this particular lecture is designed for those that have never built a tree and really don't know much about it. But I recognize that many of you already have trees. How many do have a tree already? Oh, yeah, about a third of you. That's good. If I make a mistake, don't correct me. You know, this is just for fun, right? So let's just have a look and see what's going on. All right, so here's an outline of what we're going to talk about. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I know I already did that, but it's about me, after all. Where do you begin doing your research? I'll talk about that. There's some charts and forms. There's always paperwork, but that's important because you've got to start documenting stuff. Interviewing relatives, we'll talk a little bit about that today, but there's really a lot more to know about that in the workshops. And we'll go into workshop, we'll talk about the techniques of interviewing your relatives and why it's important. What kind of records? We got to find some records to prove who we are. And where do you start looking for them? How do you find the search engines and discover where these items are? course, we'll talk a little bit about DNA. I'm not a molecular biologist, but I'll tell you what I know, and you can decide whether it's something worth pursuing. And then, of course, lastly, we want to create a family tree. Not lastly, actually, we're going to start the tree tomorrow. So this is my background real quickly. I've been researching genealogy for 30 years. I started with the Revolutionary War, and I joined the Sons of the American Revolution. The Daughters of the American Revolution is quite a bit more famous, but the Sons of the American Revolution is pretty interesting too. So I have 17 ancestors who fought in the Revolution. My Mayflower Pilgrim descendant, John Howland, that's proven. Jamestown Society, I found the link, but I haven't yet established enough proof for them to grant me access. As many as 20 genealogy associations. It's actually a lot more than that. My mailbox used to be just full of stuff. And I have certification pending for the American Council of Genealogists. I don't know if I'll ever complete that. That's quite a rigorous program. And I'm a cruise ship lecturer, as you may see, and a consultant for hire, but I don't really do much of that anymore.